For joining us. Always a pleasure having you on the programme. We now move on. We stay in the region now and move over to the Gaza Strip, where at least 20 people have been killed in a crush at an aid distribution centre in southern Gaza, run by the US and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The GHF said 19 were trampled to death and one was stabbed amid a chaotic and dangerous surge at its site in the Khan Younis area. It added it believed people armed and affiliated with Hamas fomented unrest. However, Gaza's Hamas-run government media official denies the claim and accused the GHF of trying to cover up crime. Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis said it had received the bodies of 21 people who died from suffocation as a result of tear gas inhalation and a crush at the aid site. It is the first time the GHF has confirmed deaths at one of its sites. The government media office accused the US private security contractors who distribute aid for the GHF of causing the crush by closing the gates of the site after thousands of people had gathered in narrow channels to collect food and then firing canisters of tear gas and live rounds towards them. There have been many reports of Palestinians being killed while seeking aid since the GHF began operations. The Israeli military even said last week that it recognises there have been incidents in which civilians had been harmed and that it was working to minimise possible friction between the population and the IDF as much as possible. Amid the massive strikes and uncertainty over the Israeli hostage release, the ceasefire talks do not seem to be reaching its conclusion. A senior Hamas official have rejected claims of progress in Gaza ceasefire talks, adding the Palestinian group had not received maps planning for Israeli withdrawal from the Palestinian territory. We're now joined by Martin Sa Arayes. He's a foreign affairs expert who is joining us live from Ecuador. Martin, thank you very much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you, Thomas.
Let's start with this aid distribution point, Martin. 20 people killed at an aid distribution point seeking aid. This is the first time the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation itself has confirmed that there have been deaths at one of its aid sites. How credible are the GHF's claims that that armed elements fomented the unrest, and what independent mechanisms exist to investigate these allegations, if any?
So before starting, this is heartbreaking news. It's always terrible when civilians are killed in this type of disasters, humanitarian disasters. The situation in Gaza is very complicated because we don't have a body that is absolutely neutral. But if I can give my opinion and we can compare the Hamas and Palestinian authorities and this NGO, which is of course backed by America, but we're talking about a legit and well-known organization for aiding people around the world from the US. Of course, the US is biased, but again, it's a legit organization. It's way more credible than believing what the Hamas terror organization is saying. It's absolutely heartbreaking that civilians are dying, but unfortunately, this is a strategy from terror elements to accuse Israel of war crimes and using their people to as human shields is absolutely heartbreaking, but absolutely this NGO is a legit NGO and is absolutely credible. And I think...
Martin, sorry, I just have to play devil's advocate here. The United Nations, who internationally is recognised as a neutral organisation, has said there's been 875 deaths near Gaza aid sites in the past 6 weeks. We've said today that this is the first time that deaths have been announced by the GHF itself. What are your thoughts in the way that the GHF is handling problems? Handling crowd control is part of aid distribution. The United Nations was previously doing it before the blockade was imposed by the Israeli government. What are your thoughts on how the GHF is handling that situation?
I think by this point, no organization can absolutely control what kind of people are going to these humanitarian aid centers. Um, in Gaza, we have the problem that Hamas cells are infiltrated in all the society. It's impossible to know who belongs to Hamas, who is a innocent civilian from Gaza. It's almost impossible. And a lot of civilians, unfortunately, are directly or indirectly related to Hamas. I'm not saying that civilians are Hamas. Of course, there are innocent people who want peace and want to live in a normal life. But unfortunately, there are also cooperation from civilians cooperating with Hamas. So it's a very difficult situation. No one can really know who is Hamas, who is an innocent civilian. I think this organization is doing the best for helping the allegedly civilians who are going there to get help. I think it's also very difficult for the UN. Unfortunately, the UN, even though it's a legit organization, a neutral organization who's trying to help the world in all of these bad situations, unfortunately, a lot of Hamas people from Hamas have been using the good intentions from the UN for using them for carrying out a lot of terror organizations. We need to remember UNRWA, a UN organization, has been used for carrying out terror organizations, and a lot of people who were involved with the kidnapping of Israelis were
Sorry,
working
Martin,
for UNRWA.
I don't understand. Where was that source from? Where's that information from? Apologies.
Of course, from the Israeli government.
Okay.
And also you can, yeah.
So it's from an Israeli source.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on now to the Gaza negotiations. The possibility here of a ceasefire. Martin, it seemed like we had to have had some optimism in regards to the possibility of this 60-day pause being announced at some point soon. What are your thoughts? And now we've had some reports from Palestinian Hamas officials who have said that now ceasefire plans are in fact stalled, and it is over both aid distribution by the UN and also military presence in the Gaza Strip, where Israel reportedly, according to Hamas, is not willing to budge in regards to that.
So basically, I don't see a ceasefire in the near future. Even Hamas have been confirming this, that they're not seeing any ceasefire in the couple of days or weeks. As I said before, I don't think Hamas is going to cooperate. I don't think they're going to give up. This is a terror organization that is not willing to give up on. They don't care about their people. They just want to fight Israel forever. And I think this is a very difficult situation. And I don't see in the near future a ceasefire. Maybe if all of the hostages are released, there can be a possibility of approaching a ceasefire. But until then, I don't see any ceasefire in the next days.
Martin Saar Arias, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Pleasure having you on once again. We now move over to South